Okay, today I'd like to put Romans 1 to rest because I keep on hearing people say that they're tired of hearing these pro-gay Christians talk for homosexuality and gay rights and always conveniently skip over Romans 1. Even though I've done 2 videos on Romans, I'm still hearing that. So I want to make this real simple, real clear cut, and real exhaustive so I can put this to rest. Romans 1.
Whenever I step outside.
Now Romans is a letter, and just like every other letter that's ever been written, it was written to a very specific audience in a specific time and a specific place. So when we're reading the Pauline epistles, we need to consider this for all the Pauline epistles. The Gospels were written for a general audience, for everybody to read. These were to a specific audience addressing specific issues. And so we need to figure out what these specific issues are. Now, as we read the beginning of Romans 1, we'll come to realize that Paul is speaking of a very specific group of people. Not to a very specific group of people, but rather about a very specific group of people. You'll see he says they did this, they did that, they did all these things. And so this is one group of people. This isn't talking about everyone. This isn't a prophecy about the future. This is about something that was happening at the time, and it's very easy to bring that out of text. Now, if you look at Romans 1:23, we can come to understand what Paul is talking about when they say they. He is talking about pagans. 1:23 reads this: "Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images." Now, images made to look like mortal men and birds and animals and reptiles. Okay? These are pagans. Most likely pagans that used to profess Christ and be Christian deciding to go to paganism or go back to paganism whenever the situation was. So with this in mind, that the people he's talking about are pagans, we need to use this to interpret the rest of this passage. Very easy. Okay, in the verse 29, it says that these people, the pagans, mind you, were guilty of envy, murder, malice, and strife. So let's consider these things. Now, does this matter that a pagan is practicing these things? Does it really matter how you practice these things? Are these things ever right? No. So, with this example, it is clear to see that the fact that these are pagans practicing these things is insubstantial to any kind of argument, that these are moral absolutes, by and large, hands down. Now, we come to the more difficult part, of where it describes same-sex acts, 25, 26, 27. So now let's consider sex. Is sex inherently wrong? No. Does it matter how you practice sex? Does practicing sex differently make it okay in some such circumstances? Absolutely yes. Sex is something that God gave to us to enjoy. We're supposed to enjoy it within the proper confines. So, we need to ask ourselves, did pagans practice same-sex acts any differently or any distinct way that would set it apart from the way that your run-of-the-mill gay guy practices it today? The answer is a resounding yes. If we look at the historical record and we research the exact time and place within 10 years or so of when this letter was written and context it to how pagans practiced homosexuality and same-sex acts, we can clearly see that the way pagans practiced homosexuality was in connection to the worship of their pagan gods. They had orgies and they practiced male temple prostitution. These are not acts of love, and there is no commitment between the participants. Actually, many of these people that practiced these practices were married men. So here we can clearly see that the way pagans practice homosexuality is a far cry from the way the run-of-the-mill gay person practices homosexuality today. Now, many like to say that this says eisegesis, putting something into the text that is not there. But, seeing as this is a letter, which is different from a gospel, and it's to a very specific audience at a very specific time and place, and seeing as we have the historical record readily available, if we don't use that information to translate and interpret what's being said, then how can we get an accurate interpretation? The answer is you can't. The only thing you could possibly answer to say you shouldn't apply historical context to this passage is by saying the people that this was being written to were magical people who were not confined to time or space and were eternal beings, which is completely ridiculous. This is a letter written by a mortal man to other mortals who lived in a certain time of history. And when they heard these passages about homosexuality, they knew what it was referring to. They knew it was talking about the cultic practices, and of course they were indecent acts. But to use this passage to condemn modern-day gays and to ban gay marriage is completely ludicrous. And the people who originally wrote this letter, the first century Christians, would have said the same thing. Christ never intended for gay people to be excluded from his church, from his body. And that's the bottom line. Peace.